Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at lesson 15, problem solving with line plots. And you might be thinking, didn't we already do this, Mrs. Lehman, like a week ago? And yes, but absolutely nope. Because what we were looking at the last time was the same skill, but it was with whole numbers. So what you're seeing on this screen should look extremely familiar, okay? Because in my last video, if you watched my last video, it was talking about looking at a line plot and answering some questions about it. And we learned about how to find the range, which is the difference between the highest and lowest. So when we look at this, our highest length of fishing string was 15 and our lowest length of fishing string was 10. So our range was 15 minus 10, which was 5. And then we also talked about this highest level of solving with line plots when we're asked for a total, and not just the total amount of fishing lines, but what's the total amount of inches. So then you have this complicated equation of saying, oh, we have to do 10 plus 2 times 11, or 10 plus 11 plus 11, plus 13 plus 13 plus 13, also known as 13 times 3, plus, and then continue until you've added up the value for each of the x's. So that's what we're going to be talking about today again, but this time it's all going to be about fractions. So I want to do a real quick review of multiplying fractions. So just real quick, okay? So there's three different types of multiplying fractions. So the first one is when you have a fraction times a fraction. So when we do this, we just take numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. And there we have our answer. Okay, we're not going to be doing any of that in this lesson. In this lesson, we have two things that we might be doing. We might be doing a whole number times a fraction, or we might be doing a mixed number times a fraction. So let's go 2/5. Okay, so just as a reminder, when we have a whole number, we have to put that whole number over 1 because 3 is the same thing as 3 divided by 1. So this equals 3. Once we put that whole number over 1, we can do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And then if we end up with an improper, we have to fix it so that it ends up being a mixed number. So we could have whole numbers times fractions. We could also have a mixed number. Sorry, I didn't mean this. Sorry, total mistake there, guys. My fault. So we could have a mixed number times a whole number. Okay, so when I have 3.5 times 4, I have to change 3.5 into an improper fraction. So 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7 halves, and then my whole number needs to go over 1. Okay, so I can do 7 times 4 and 2 times 1, or I can do a little cross canceling to start with. So 2 and 4 can be cross canceled because they have a factor in common. It's 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So when I solve this, I have 7 times 2 is 14, and 1 times 1 is 1. So 7 halves times 4 over 1 equals 14, or 3.5 times 4 equals 14. So there's our review of how to multiply whole numbers and fractions and mixed numbers and whole numbers, because this might be something that comes up when we go through our examples today. Okay, so this problem should look familiar. We did do it before, but my number line before had all whole numbers in it, and all of my problems today are going to look familiar, but I've changed all of my line plots to actually have fractions now, okay? So this one's going to be a little bit intense. Get ready, because here we go. Okay, so if you don't remember this problem from last week, Allie was cutting string pieces for her art project, and the line plot shows the lengths of each of the pieces. So she has 2 pieces of string that are 12 and 1/4. She has, oh my goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are 12.5, and continuing on looking at all of those. So those are all the little pieces of string she has. She's got a lot of pieces of string. So the question is, how many total inches of string does Allie have for her art project? When we're talking total inches, I have to add up the value for every single one of these x's. This is going to be a little intense here, guys. Okay, so here is the equation that we would use. So we'd have to do 12 and 1/4 times 2, 12.5 times 7, 12 and 3/4 times 5, 13 times 5, and 13 and 1/4 times 4. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some of this here and just show you what this would look like. Okay, so I have 12 and 1/4 times 2. Now, we've talked about how, and I'm going to recommend for a lot of you that you, instead of doing the multiplication, you do the repeated addition, because this can get pretty intense pretty quickly here. Okay, so we have 12 and 1/4 times 2. So I have two options. I can change 12 and 1/4 to an improper fraction. So I would have 4 times 12 is 48 plus 1 is 49. So I'd end up with 49/4 times 2. Okay, so I can do some cross canceling here. I can do 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this would end up actually being 49 times 1 is 49, 2 times 1 is 2. So then whenever I fix that improper fraction, I have 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, bring down the 9, we have 4, 8, and a remainder of 1. So this would be 24.5, okay? Now, for a lot of you, that's really intense. So what you can do instead is do repeated addition. Now, for when we get to some of our bigger numbers, this might be a little bit more difficult, but look at that, 24 and 2/4, or also known as 24.5, okay? So for just the sake of showing everyone, I think I'm probably going to show this to you in repeated addition. However, if when you're doing it on your own, you want to use that multiplication, that's totally fine with me, okay? So my next one, I have 12.5 times 7. Okay, so I'm going to write that down here. I have 12.5, and I'm going to 7 times. Okay, so 12, 12, 12, 7. Okay, and then I have a half each time. Okay, so what's going to happen is, oh, I can't fit that. Ooh. Okay, so I have 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves, 7 halves. So 7 halves is equal to 3.5. So on this side, I have 3.5, and 12 times 7 is 84. So I have 84 plus 3.5. So the answer for this one is 87 and a, whoops, 87 and a half. Okay, and over here I had 24.5. Okay, so I'm going to continue and do the same thing here. 5 of these, and then 3/4. 3/4. Okay, so when I add up my fourths, I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 fourths. So on this side I have 15 fourths, so I have to do 15 divided by 4 to figure out what the mixed number is for that. And so we have 3 and 12, so 3 3/4 for this side. Okay, so get rid of that real quick. Hold on. Okay, so I have 3 3/4 all for the fractions. And then when I have 5 12s, that's 60. So add that to those two together. This one is 63 3/4. And then when I have 13 times 5, ooh, super simple there. 13 times 5, 15, 65 for that one. And then our last one is 13 1/4. And I need to do it 4 times. So 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 is 4/4, also known as 1. And then on this side, we have 4 13s. So 13 times 4, or this is going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, and 52. Okay, so we have 52 plus 1 is 53. So now to get our final answer, we need to add up all of those numbers. So I have to do 24.5, 87.5, 63 3/4, 65 and 53 added together. So looking at our fraction part first, we have a half plus 3/4. Well, we know our half is 2/4, so we're going to change all these to have common denominators. So 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 3 more is 7/4. Okay, so we have 7/4, and when I go to fix that, I end up with, oh, you guys can't see that. Sorry about that. There we go. I end up with 1 3/4. So right on this side, it equals 1 3/4, and then we have to add up all of our whole numbers. So 4 plus 7 is 11, plus 3 is 14, plus 5 is 19, plus 3 more is 20, 21, 22. Regroup by 2. Okay, I have 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 8 is 12, plus 6 is 18, plus another 6. Oh, sorry. Wait, what was I? 18, 10, 12, 6, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So I have 292. Okay, and then I have to add 1 and 3/4 to that. So 292 plus 1 is 3 and 3/4. Let's check out our answer here, crossing fingers. Ba-boom, 293 and 3/4 inches of string. Okay, that is a lot of work. Yes, I totally agree. That's like, whoo, my. Okay, but just it's persistence and it's just sticking with it. And once again, like I said, if you're ready to do that higher math, and actually you can use a calculator if you want to, you can make them into improper fractions and do it that way as well. Okay, so let's look at one more. This will be our last one for today. This problem last week, I had it as whole numbers also, but now we have our fractions. So it says, how many miles did Susanna hike in all? Okay, so we're going to look at an equation here. Now you're going to notice we have a 5 and a 6, but then I have the hashes or the ticks in the middle. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So these are fourths. So this right here is 5 and 1/4, 5 and 2/4. This is 6 and 1/4, 7 and 1/4, 7 and 2/4, 7 and 3/4. So that's what we're going to be adding together or multiplying. So I have 5 and 1/4 3 times, 5 1/2 twice, 6 and 1/4 5 times, 7 and 1/4 twice, and 7 1/2 once, and 7 and 3/4 once. Those are super simple to get started with. So 7 1/2 once is 7 1/2. 7 and 3/4 once is 7 and 3/4. So those two are done. Okay. So if I'm going to go and do this next one, and if you want to pause after I get all these written out and you want to try it yourself, that's great, because I'm going to pause and actually put the answers here so that I don't waste video time. So these are all the things that we're going to be adding together. So if you want to pause this and go ahead and solve it yourself and come back for the answers, that's awesome. Okay, so I hope you paused and you tried that yourself. I already have the answers written here. So when I added 5 and 1/4 3 times, it was 15 and 3/4. 5 1/2 plus 5 1/2, well, 1/2 and 1/2 is 2 halves or 1, and 5 plus 5 is 10, so put that together for 11. 6 and 1/4, you end up with 30 plus 5/4, or a final answer of 31 and 1/4. 7 and 1/4 times 2 is 14 and 2/4, and then we already had our 7 1/2 and 3/4 and 7 and 3/4. So now when I look at this and I write down this entire problem, this is what it looks like. Okay, so I had 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 1/2, so I changed that one to fourths, and I have 3/4. So adding the fraction part first, I have 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 more is 8, plus 3 more is 11. So we have 11/4 for our fraction side. So when we divide that, we end up with 2 and 3/4. So our fraction part is 2 and 3/4. Now we have to do our whole number part. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Plus 7 is 18. Plus another 7 is 25. So regroup the 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. 8. So we have 85 and then 2 and 3/4. So when you add those two together, you end up with 87 and 3/4. And the label there would be miles. And I don't think I did a label on the last one, but it would have been inches. Okay, so grand finale, are we correct? Ba-boom, 87 and 3/4 miles. Okay, guys, I know this is really intense. I am going to give you a little practice on it. Nothing quite this difficult, but just take your time. You can use a calculator, use some scratch paper, you can use multiplication, or you can use repeated addition. It's totally up to you. Good luck. This is as intense as it's going to get, guys. So after this, next couple days are going to be just a little bit easier. Have a great day.